Hey guys, Jason here with a word to the wise. I want to discuss a few things that I think are very key right now. It's the 14th, Sunday. I want to talk about a few things that I've been wanting to make videos on. We just saw the eclipse happened Monday. Whether you saw it or not, it was just interesting that, we're all waiting to see it. And before it happens, I'm looking around and I'm seeing a lot of planes doing air shows, basically, because I remember going to air shows when I was a little kid, and you'd see like the Blue Angels. They had their jet airplanes, and I'm pretty sure they burn a different kind of fuel than a regular plane, like a passenger plane. But when they flew, they could fly and you would see nothing. But when they hit a switch, then they could do the skywriting. They had those old propeller planes that would fly around and do rolls and acrobatics and all that, and they would turn a switch on and you could, follow that. But that's why a skywriter who does skywriting doesn't write in cursive, because he can turn it on to make a letter and then turn it off when he wants to stop the letter. He doesn't sit there and make your name in cursive, because it would be impossible to do. With that, I've said this, you can go to any airport and you can watch all the planes take off. You can watch them as they fly in and fly out and go to altitudes. You can follow them out of town, and you don't see those kinds of skywriting acrobatics coming out of those planes. So the planes that are up, coming out of, I watch them come over from over here. I don't know, it's I believe that's the west, but I believe it was that day, it was one after another, and they were lining, and then they started going across. I was like, oh, it must be an air show going on today. But anyway, also with that eclipse, I said, I always wish they would do some sort of a filming out of satellites or whatever, maybe the ISS. And you know what came out? Search it up, because they're fun to sit there and look at and wonder. And I'll give you a couple of my ideas. Is when you watch the ISS as it's floating, and they always show the pictures in the commercials or on, some, promotional thing, and they have a camera that's on part of the framework that's way up in the corner, but you get to see the most of the body part of the whole thing, and you see the Earth passing below. But they say, and they announce that they took footage of the eclipse, and it's like a zoomed in shot that takes up the entire screen, and you're watching, and you can almost see houses, roofs, and it's like you're so close and you can't. It's like, why would you guys muck this up and give us this one angle that just shows a blobby shadow coming across? Don't I normally see like the entire state of Florida from your guys' view? And now you're like focused in on a county. And then to say that the shadow is a shadow at all, I can't. I don't know. And then I believe Elon Musk's SpaceX, they got a Starlink satellite that took some footage that was interesting, because it was coming across the land in the sky, and you could see the entirety of the shadow in a place. And the thing that kind of got me is when you're watching it and you're like, oh, well, I can't say that it is or isn't. I saw 3 videos, and they were all different kinds of angles and styles. And with the Starlink one, you're watching the satellite frame that's holding solar panels or something like that, but it's the ricketiness of the armatures as it's floating, and it's like, wouldn't that just be that kind of a vibration? I mean, you're in the weightlessness of space, but wouldn't that kind of vibration cause some sort of a rolling effect of your satellite? Wouldn't you want that to be solid in some way? Why is it shaking like it's on the back of a truck or something? I don't know. I just thought it was a bit ridiculous. And then you look at these and it's like, is that what a shadow would look like? Or is that just some sort of a special effect that's drawn in? Can't prove or say anything to it. I'm just saying, and in my own view, check them out, search them out, watch them. You know, usually they're only about 30 seconds long. In the timepiece land, we have issues brewing, and there's I believe they locked down their airspace. So no planes in, no planes out. I was saying, you know, because now we're getting closer to Passover and to, you know, when is this red heifer thing going to happen? Now, dates have been thrown out, but nobody's got anything locked down. But interesting that this has happened and it locks down the airspace. So that's one factor now off the table, not to affect them. I keep looking at the other side. I'm sorry. It's one more factor not to affect them from anybody trying to get in their way. But I imagine scenarios might increase a little bit more, so that way they can now do a curfew, because if you do a sundown curfew, nobody's going to be on the streets, or should be on the streets. And I believe they would do that. If you look at the red heifer prophecy, it's they do it in the evening and they burn it to the morning down to the ashes. The bones, the fat, the dung, everything burns to ashes, and they collect that. And that's what I said in one of those last videos, one of the last two, I believe, is how would they do this without protest? Or if this whole thing that's happening over there is due to the red heifers, then why wouldn't the people say, well, if you guys are setting it up? No, because you guys are wanting to start this, so to begin your ceremonial cleansing for a temple. But imagine, like I said, what do they need? They need that piece of real estate. But if they have people coming in and they're lobbing missiles, because they, like I always say, they never seem to hit any government installations. They always seem to hit schools and daycares and public houses and apartment buildings. But who are you really fighting against? If you're that upset and you want to go to war, and you're lobbing that kind of money into the fight, yet it does no damage to your enemy, just to the innocent people. That's a interesting idea, because then it says, you know, do they all eat at the same table in some way or another, whether they know it or not? A lot of people have been going on about prophecies because of the eclipse. And a lot of people saying, you know, 3 days of darkness, and this is going to unleash locusts, and the cicadas are coming. I don't believe the locusts are locust bugs in reference to that. And you can type in locusts into the Bible hub or searches and see how many times locusts have been used. And what they always seem to be referring to is, well, we'll get a little more into that, but before I get that, I'll get to that in a minute. In America, I turned on the news just for a minute while I had some time, and I was just watching. There was a whole discussion of Trump and whether he is right or wrong and what he's done, and I believe it was Governor Sununu, which I'm in New Hampshire right now. He's the governor of New Hampshire, but he was on CBS News this morning with the Stephanopoulos guy, and he kept questioning him, like, do you stand by your remarks? He goes, I stand with Trump, even though, you know, he might have had a hand in what happened back, you know, as he was leaving office. And he says, I know that happened, but you have to understand the changing of the guards and what society looks like now, basically. And what the other big issue that's on the table right now is the abortion issue. And that seems to always come up whenever things are moving in the background. They throw this up on to the stage, and they just have people fighting over the same arguments over and over and over, and they change some laws here and rules there. This is the second time I'm doing this video, so I don't want to get too deep into it. They always throw out health issues, or, you know, the woman was impregnated without her consent, is I guess the best way to say that. And to go to these clinics, and if there's a waiting room of people, if you ask them the scenario why you're here, how many people would say that versus I'm just not ready to be a mother yet? And I'm not saying that anybody, I know a lot of people think that it's just a thing, but that's the degradation of the world and society. And you have to come into an understanding. I came into Christ before I would say yes. Now I say no. If that happened now that I'm a Christian, I would say, I understand. Please think about it. I can't, hold you against your will. But if you have it, I will take it and I will raise it and you can go about your way. Just don't do this, please. That would be the scenario in my eyes today. Now, this happens 6 days after the eclipse. A lot of people talk about Nineveh. And it's interesting because I just recently was going through the minor prophets. And let me just see if I can just dig it up real quick. Bear with me for a second. Jonah, we know, is to bring the prophecy to Nineveh. I believe I passed it, if I'm not Amos. So, there's Joel. Hosea, Obadiah. I think that's when... Jonah. Okay, yeah. That's why it's only a page and a quarter. So, in the beginning, here it is. Jonah, the son of Amittai, is saying, arise and go to Nineveh, that great city. So, okay. Now, if you go to... he's supposed to bring the prophecy, and he runs. So, what did Nineveh do? They had a lot of abominations. And what I never realized is Nahum, which is after Micah, chapter 1. The oracle concerning Nineveh, the book and the vision of Nahum of Elkosh. And it's titled God's Wrath Against Nineveh. So it goes into the entire thing. It's 3 chapters, and it talks about what is coming to Nineveh. But Nineveh didn't get destroyed because God had mercy on them because they repented of what they did, which upset Jonah, but later on, I believe he understood, even though Jonah kind of cuts off at the end of its chapter. So, locusts. Now, a small focus I want to have on locusts here. I'm not saying we're going into that time. Have we gone through the 4 horsemen? I don't know. People talk about the bottomless pit and the locusts come out in chapter 9 of Revelations. Yes. Okay, something comes out, whether it be something physical or it's like the spirits of demons that are ready for war that come out and they come into the people. Because that's one thing I see in the New Testament is how many times Jesus walked around and cured people. And you see that also in Acts with Peter and Paul and in some stories that they were cleansing demons. So there was a lot of demonicness that they were able to pick out, even though people seemed normal. The one lady that was a mystic or whatever, Paul knew something was up, and he took the demon out of the woman, and the people then were mad because they used her as like a psychic or some sort to make money, and now they've lost that, and so they wanted him gone, I believe. Don't quote me on that. So I just did a search. I was doing a search like men like locust, and some things popped up. Then I was like locust, and then I just did locust. But Deuteronomy 28 I ran into, and that was something I was talking about not too long ago. And I ran into this prophecy that I was looking and I was talking about that I lost, that I couldn't find again. I'm like, oh man, I know there's something that speaks about this. And I just, give me a minute to So Deuteronomy 28, the Lord will cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You shall go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and you shall be a horror to all kingdoms of the earth. Now, this is curses for disobedience, it's titled. And it begins in chapter 28 is blessings for obedience, but they didn't obey. They were not obedient. And so it talks about the curses for disobedience. So it's interesting that they're trying to, they're having this thing right now, and it's interesting how they are being portrayed kind of like monsters for being over the top, and they're not just taking out their enemy, but they're also hurting a lot of innocent people in the process. Last I heard weeks ago was 30,000, and if they keep fighting, then I'm sure that number has increased. But so let me just go down here to, I believe it's 38 in chapter 28 in Deuteronomy. You shall carry much seed into the field and gather in little, for the locust shall consume it. You shall plant vineyards and dress them, but you shall neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worm shall eat them. You shall have olives, though you shall have olive trees throughout all your territories, but you shall not you shall not anoint yourself with the oil from your olives, for your olives shall drop off. You shall father sons and daughters, but they shall not be yours, for they shall go into captivity. The crickets shall possess all your trees and the fruits of your grounds. Now, in the King James, that chapter 42, the crickets shall possess all your trees and fruits of your grounds, is also locusts. There's 2 black crows stepping towards me right now. So the thing with, now I'm going to jump into Revelation 9. He opened the bottomless pit, from the smoke arose like a great furnace. The sun and the air were darkened from the smoke of the shaft. Then the smoke came locusts on the earth, and they were given powers of the power of a scorpion on the earth. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth, or any green plant, or any tree. So what do locusts do? They come and they consume all the vegetation off of everything. And these locusts are not doing that. I saw how, I think it was Armor of Truth pointed that out. And the locusts are never spoken of again after that. So with that idea in mind, let me just keep this in check here. So with that in mind, have the 4 horsemen already rode? Have the seals already been opening for years, or even decades, or centuries? It talks about, of course I took the bookmark out. If the 4th horseman is able to kill, I believe it's a quarter of the earth, authority over a 1/4 of the earth, to kill with sword and with famine, with pestilence, and by the wild beasts of the earth. When he opened the 5th seal, I saw the altars, under the altars, the souls of those who have been slain for the word of God and for witnesses they have borne. Now, have these things been going on for thousands of years since Jesus, 1,000+ years? And is this a collective thing? The 3rd horse, do not harm the oil and the wine. Is that like faith and the word? You could almost say, not saying that that's exactly what's being said here. I'm not changing scripture or doing anything like that. I'm just saying that in the idea, since this is so cryptic in a way that it's like hard to understand what's truly going on, what's physical, what's metaphorical, what's spiritual, and the sky rolling back like a scroll, earthquakes, the sun became black as sackcloth, and the full moon became like blood, and the stars fell to earth. the locusts aren't mentioned anymore in scriptures whatsoever. And to say that monsters are running amok, not being spoken about in scripture, not prophesied in the past by the prophets, saying, well, the giants will return. People say, well, as in the days of Noah. Yeah, but it's not saying that giants are walking anywhere. And when you see in the bowls, the spirits come out of the men, the false prophet, and I believe it's the beast, like this, like frogs. So that's not like gray aliens peeling off their skin and showing themselves. No, it's the spirits coming out of them. It's, I believe, what is being said here. See, I don't want to misquote things again. So, and I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophets, 3 unclean spirits like frogs, for they are demonic spirits performing signs. So, coming out of their mouths, does that mean they're actually coming out and leaving the person? Or is it the voice of the demonic spirits? And then if you look at, I'll end with this. The second beast in Revelation. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all the authority of the first beast in its presence, making the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. And it performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people. And by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on the earth, telling them to make an image for the beast, that the wound of the sword in yet lived. So, not locusts, not telling them to worship the locusts that came out of the pit because they're scary and we need to abide by whatever they say. No. Is this a bunch of the beast of the earth that are like basically people that are leading people astray, leading them to their deaths if you follow them? Whether they are physically killing people, obviously yes. If Revelation talks about, it talks about the mark of the beast here, and those who cannot buy or sell without it, and they were beheaded in Revelation 20, and those are the ones who resurrected. So is that, were they killed? Were they beheaded by locusts? By bugs? By giants and monsters of the earth that came out of the pit? No, it doesn't speak about any of that anywhere, does it? So, with that, thinking outside the box, as always, I hope, because a lot of people are saying this, and I loved in my past to watch Shaking My Head Productions because he brought a lot of interesting information forth. But I've kind of moved past that, where I don't even watch a lot of his videos anymore because it's a lot of regurgitating old video clips and things like that. If I'm looking towards video games and movies to tell the future, then what do I need the Bible for? I'm at 25 minutes. If I go too much longer, I'm not going to be able to upload this. So I'll try to get this put together as best I can. If I don't put the scriptures up on the screen, I gave the titles. I gave that. I got to go to work. I got to fix problems on a Sunday. So just a word to the wise. Have faith and keep your eye out, because Passover's coming, and it sounds like they're kind of setting the stage so they can do what they want and nobody's going to get in the way. And we know that they have really propped up America to be a Babylonian fall guy, I believe also. And whether they believe in the New Testament, well, I don't think that they see themselves as part of mystery Babs. I'll leave it at that. Just a word of the wise, guys. God bless.